Listen to me with the full attention of your spirit. What you are carrying inside you has never existed on this earth before. Not in your family line, not in your nation, not in the history books, not in the minds of kings or scholars. You are not ordinary matter arranged by chance. You are intention made visible. You are breath shaped by purpose. You are standing at the edge of a revelation about yourself that, if fully understood, will shake everything you thought was fixed, limited, or impossible. Right now, while you are listening, something is awakening. It is not noise. It is not emotion alone. It is recognition. It is the moment when the soul remembers what it came from and why it was sent. The world has tried to name you by your past, by your mistakes, by your weaknesses, by the limits placed on you since childhood. Systems trained you to shrink your expectations. Voices around you told you to be realistic, to be careful, to stay in your place, to not expect too much from life or from yourself. But realism without God is blindness. Caution without faith is bondage. When God formed you, He did not consult your circumstances. He did not ask permission from your environment. He did not wait for the world to approve His design. He spoke, and when God speaks, possibility is created. You are the product of that speech. You are the evidence that God is not finished revealing His power through human lives. There is a power inside you that the world has never seen before, because the world has never seen you fully aligned with the purpose of God. The world has seen your survival, but not your surrender. The world has seen your struggle, but not your authority. The world has seen your labor, but not your dominion. You have lived beneath your calling because you were taught to measure yourself by visible standards. God never measures that way. God measures by faith, by obedience, by willingness, by the courage to believe beyond what eyes can confirm. When God looks at you, He does not see what you lack. He sees what He placed within you before you ever took your first breath. You must understand this deeply. God never creates duplicates. He never repeats Himself. Every person is a singular expression of divine intent. If you were not necessary, you would not exist. If your assignment were insignificant, you would not feel this unrest inside your spirit. That dissatisfaction you feel with ordinary living is not arrogance. It is not greed. It is not rebellion. It is calling. It is the echo of God, reminding you that you were designed for more than survival, more than routine, more than small dreams and borrowed expectations. You are not meant to fit comfortably into a broken system. You are meant to transform it by the power God placed in you. The reason you feel pressure is because power is forming. The reason you feel resistance is because something valuable is being protected inside you. Pressure is not proof of failure. It is proof of potential. God allows to destroy you, but to shape you. The same heat that hardens clay melts gold. What determines the outcome is not the intensity of the fire, but the substance being refined. You are not clay meant to crack under weight. You are substance meant to endure, to be purified, to emerge stronger, clearer, and more valuable than before. Faith is not pretending that problems do not exist. Faith is deciding that God exists above every problem. Faith is alignment with the unseen authority that governs the visible world. When you align with God, circumstances must eventually realign with you. This is not poetry. This is spiritual law. The world responds to conviction. Reality responds to belief. When your inner world is established by God, your outer world cannot remain the same forever. Delay is not denial. Silence is not absence. Waiting is not punishment. Often waiting is preparation for a level of responsibility you are not yet fully ready to carry. Many people want power, but few want transformation. They want results without surrender. They want authority without obedience. But the power God releases through a person is always proportional to the depth of that person's alignment with Him. God does not empower rebellion. He empowers trust. He does not strengthen ego. He strengthens faith. When you yield your plans, your timing, your fears, and your self-made identities to God, something remarkable happens. You do not become weaker. You become unstoppable. Surrender to God is not the loss of self. It is the discovery of your true self. The world has trained you to look outward for validation, but God calls you inward for revelation. When you pray, you are not informing God of your needs. When you pray with sincerity, you are not begging. You are positioning yourself under authority. And authority always produces power. The quiet moments you think are unproductive are often the moments when the greatest shifts are happening within you. You must stop asking whether you are capable and start asking whether God is faithful. Your capability is limited. His faithfulness is not. The moment you place the burden of success on yourself alone, you shrink the scope of what is possible. But when you place your trust fully in God, you step into a flow that transcends logic, statistics, and past experience. God does not need favorable odds. He creates outcomes. He does not need consensus. He establishes truth. He does not need your strength. He works through your willingness. Inside you is a vision that frightens you because it demands growth. Inside you is a calling that disrupts comfort. Inside you is a future that cannot coexist with fear. Fear is the language of limitation. Faith is the language of God. Every time you choose faith over fear, you expand your capacity to carry what God wants to release through you. The world has never seen what happens when someone fully believes God without reservation, without backup plans, rooted in doubt, without secretly preparing for failure. Total belief changes behavior. Total belief changes decisions. Total belief changes destiny. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. Time does not limit God. Age does not intimidate God. History does not restrict God. He is not bound by what has been. He operates from what He has spoken. And what God has spoken over you is still active, still powerful, still moving toward fulfillment. Your responsibility is to force the outcome, but to remain faithful in the process. Obedience unlocks doors that effort alone cannot open. The power inside you is not meant for selfish display. It is meant for service, for impact, for lifting others, for restoring what has been broken. God does not elevate people to isolate them. He elevates them to influence. When God increases your capacity, it is so that more can flow through you, not so that you can hoard what you receive. True power always carries responsibility. True authority always carries humility. The higher God lifts you, the deeper your roots in Him must go. You have survived things that should have destroyed you. That is not luck. That is evidence. You endured because something ahead of you that requires the strength you gained in the struggle. God never wastes pain. He never allows suffering without purpose. What tried to break you actually built you. What opposed you actually prepared you. What delayed you actually protected you. If you could see the full picture, you would realize that every closed door redirected you towards something greater. Your words matter more than you realize. The language you use shapes the atmosphere you live in. When you speak doubt, you reinforce limitation. When you speak fear, you empower resistance. But when you speak faith, you align with God's creative authority. God spoke the world into existence, and you being created by Him carry the ability to speak life or death into your own circumstances. Speak with intention. Speak with intention. Speak in agreement with what God has promised, not with what fear predicts. Do not underestimate the season you are in. Hidden seasons are not wasted seasons. Roots grow in darkness. Strength forms where applause is absent. God often works in silence because silence forces you to listen more closely. When everything is loud, you can mistake noise for direction. But when God quiets your environment, He sharpens your perception. Pay attention. The stillness is not emptiness. It is preparation. You must release the version of yourself that was shaped by survival. Survival mode teaches you to conserve, to hide, to expect loss. That you are being called a purpose mode where you create, where you risk, where you believe for abundance beyond personal need. God did not design you merely to endure life. He designed you to demonstrate His power through a life fully yielded to Him. That demonstration does not always look dramatic at first. Often it begins with small acts of obedience that seem insignificant to others, but are monumental in the spiritual realm. The world is desperate for authentic power, not performance. It has seen talent without integrity and influence without wisdom. What it has not seen enough of is a person who walks with God, listens to God, trusts God, and moves when God speaks. That kind of life cannot be ignored forever. It carries a weight that commands attention without demanding it. When God is the source, the impact is inevitable. You do not need permission from people to become who God called you to be. Approval is not a requirement for obedience. There will be misunderstanding. There will be opposition. There will be moments when even those closest to you cannot see what you see. That does not mean you are wrong. It means you are early. Vision often isolates before it attracts. Stay faithful. Stay grounded. Stay aligned with God, not with popular opinion. There is a strength forming in you that is quiet but unbreakable. It is not fueled by anger or pride, but by trust. It is the strength that comes from knowing that even if everything visible collapses, God remains. When that truth settles deeply within you, fear loses its grip, anxiety loses its voice, comparison loses its power. You stop chasing and start building. You stop reacting and start leading. You stop asking whether you can and start moving, because God has already said you may. The power the world has never seen before is not about domination. It is about transformation. It is the power of a mind renewed by faith, a heart anchored in God, and a life aligned with purpose. That combination changes families, communities, and generations. You are not just living for yourself. You are standing as a gateway for what God wants to do through you for others you may never meet, but whose lives will be affected by your obedience. Every step you take in faith sends a signal into the unseen realm. Every decision to trust God over fear strengthens spiritual momentum. You may not feel powerful yet, but power is not always felt before it is expressed. Often it is released in moments of simple obedience when you choose integrity over convenience, faith over comfort, truth over approval. Those moments accumulate, and one day you will look back and realize that you were becoming powerful long before you recognized it. God is patient, but purpose is persistent. Today, and one day, you will look back and purpose is persistent. And it will not leave you alone. It will call you out of hiding. It will disturb your comfort. It will challenge your excuses. Not because God is harsh, but because He is committed to what He placed inside you. He will not abandon His investment. You are His work. You are His expression. You are His instrument in this time, in this place with this unique combination of experiences, abilities, and insight. Do not despise your uniqueness. What makes you different is not a flaw. It is a clue. God often separates before he elevates. He distinguishes before he empowers. If you have felt out of place, misunderstood, or difficult to categorize, it is because you were not meant to blend in. You were meant to stand out as evidence of what happens when a life is fully aligned with God. The power inside you does not need to be announced. It will be recognized by its fruit. It will be seen in the peace you carry, the wisdom you speak, the courage you demonstrate, and the impact you leave. When God is your foundation, your life becomes a message louder than any speech. And that message continues shaping lives and opening eyes long after moments. P and seasons change. You are closer than you think. The distance between where you are and where you are meant to be is often crossed, not by dramatic leaps, but by consistent faith. Keep trusting. Keep moving forward. Even when progress feels slow, God is not rushed, but he is precise. Nothing is late. Nothing is forgotten. Nothing is accidental. What is awakening inside you now is not temporary inspiration. It is recognition of truth. You were created to carry a power that the world has never seen before, because it can only be revealed through a life fully surrendered to God, a mind anchored in faith, and a heart courageous enough to believe that what God has spoken is greater than anything the world has ever shown. There is a moment in every life when God calls a person beyond explanation and into obedience. That moment does not come with applause. It does not arrive with certainty or visible guarantees. It comes quietly, often in the midst of confusion, fatigue, or unanswered questions. Yet, when it comes, it carries weight. It presses on the conscience. It stirs the spirit. It refuses to be ignored. That moment is not meant to frighten you. It is meant to activate you. God does not call you forward because you are ready by human standards. He calls you because he is ready to reveal his strength through your obedience. You must understand that God is not impressed by outward appearances, titles, or recognition. He looks for alignment. He looks for hearts that are willing to trust him when outcomes are unclear. Many miss their moment because they wait for confidence to arrive before they act. But confidence is often born through action, not before it. God meets movement. When you step forward in faith, even trembling, even uncertain, he supplies what you lack. Power follows obedience, not the other way around. The world conditions people to depend on control. God calls you to depend on trust. Control gives the illusion of safety, but it limits growth. Trust feels risky, but it expands capacity. When you release the need to manage every outcome, you make room for God to operate beyond your understanding. Faith is not passive. It is active reliance. It is choosing to move forward while acknowledging that the strength sustaining you is not your own. There are battles you are facing now that cannot be won with strategy alone. They require spiritual clarity. They require inner alignment. They require you to stop reacting emotionally and start responding spiritually. God does not panic. God does not rush. God does not doubt. When you align your inner posture with his nature, you gain stability in chaos. You gain peace in pressure. You gain discernment where others see only confusion. Do not be surprised when growth attracts resistance. Light exposes what darkness prefers to hide. When you begin to walk in the authority God has given you, opposition often intensifies. This is not a sign to retreat. It is confirmation that you are advancing into territory that matters. Resistance is not the enemy's strength. It is the evidence of your impact. Stay steady. Stay rooted. God is not threatened by opposition, and neither should you be. You have been shaped by seasons you did not choose. Loss taught you empathy. Delay taught you patience. Silence taught you discernment. Failure taught you humility. None of it was wasted. God weaves purpose through what feels fragmented. What you thought disqualified you actually refined you. What you thought weakened you actually prepared you. The wisdom you carry now is not theoretical. It is lived. That kind of wisdom carries authority. You must stop measuring progress by speed and start measuring it by depth. Deep roots sustain tall growth. God is more concerned with who you are become in than with how quickly you arrive. Quick success without foundation collapses under pressure. But growth anchored in God endures storms, criticism, and change. Let God build you thoroughly, not hurriedly. The power within you is not loud by necessity, but it is undeniable by nature. It does not strive for attention. It commands respect through consistency. When your life reflects alignment with God, your presence alone begins to shift atmospheres. People feel peace without explanation. Doors open without manipulation. Favor follows without force. This is not mysticism. It is the natural result of a life anchored in divine order. Guard your inner life carefully. What you allow to shape your thoughts will shape your actions. What shapes your actions will shape your destiny. Feed your spirit with truth, not fear, with faith, not comparison. The world is full of noise designed to distract you from purpose. Stillness with God sharpens focus. Silence strengthens conviction. In those moments, you remember who you are and whose authority you carry. You are not here by accident, and you are not insignificant. Even when your role feels unseen, it is known to God. He sees faithfulness when others see obscurity. He sees obedience when others see delay. Heaven measures differently than the world. What is rewarded by God often goes unnoticed by people. Stay faithful anyway. What God honors lasts longer than applause. There will be moments when your strength feels depleted. Do not confuse exhaustion with defeat. Even the strongest need renewal. Return to God, not to distraction. Let Him restore your clarity before you resume your pace. Renewal is not weakness. It is wisdom. God restores not only energy, but perspective. When perspective is restored, direction becomes clear again. You carry a responsibility not only for your own life, but for the influence you will have on others. Someone will find courage because you chose faith. Someone will believe because you remain steady. Someone will rise because you did not quit. Your obedience ripples further than you can see. God uses faithful lives as living proof that trust in Him is not in vain. Do not allow disappointment to harden your heart. Hardness blocks flow. Stay soft before God. A soft heart hears direction more clearly. It receives correction without resentment. It grows without resistance. Strength does not come from hardness. It comes from resilience rooted in trust. God can do more through a yielded heart than through a guarded one. You were never meant to carry everything alone. God did not design you for isolation. He designed you for connection under His guidance. Seek wisdom. Receive counsel. But always measure every voice against alignment with God. Not every loud voice carries truth. Not every confident opinion carries wisdom. Stay anchored to the source, not the noise. As you continue forward, remember this. The power the world has never seen before is not a spectacle. It is a life fully aligned with God. Consistently faithful, deeply rooted, and courageously obedient. That kind of life shifts history quietly and permanently. It restores what was broken. It illuminates what was hidden. It stands firm when everything else shakes. You becoming that evidence. Not overnight, not without effort, but with every step of faith, every act of obedience, every decision to trust God above fear, you are stepping further into what you were created to reveal. Stay aligned, stay faithful, stay bold in trust. God is working through you in ways you cannot yet fully see, but the impact is already unfolding. There comes a time when God asks you to stop negotiating with fear and start agreeing with truth. Fear will always demand proof before obedience. Faith moves before evidence. APRS. If you wait until everything makes sense, you will remain where you are, circling the same questions, revisiting the same doubts, exhausting yourself with analysis while opportunity passes quietly by. God does not reveal the full path at once because clarity grows through trust. Each step taken in faith unlocks the next instruction. Emotion invites revelation. You were not created to live under the tyranny of yesterday. The past may explain you, but it does not define you. God is not bound to what you were. He is invested in what you are becoming. When he speaks purpose, he speaks from completion, not from your current state. He sees the end while you are still learning the beginning. That is why obedience sometimes feels unreasonable. It is anchored in a future you cannot yet see. But God already knows. There is a difference between effort and alignment. Many people exhaust themselves trying to force doors that were never meant to open. Alignment removes strain. When your will aligns with God's direction, effort becomes focused, energy becomes effective, and resistance loses its authority. You begin to recognize which battles are worth fighting and which ones are distractions. Discernment saves strength. God does not waste movement, and neither should you. You must learn to sit with truth, even when it confronts you. Growth often begins with discomfort. God refines us before he reveals. He corrects before he comments. Correction is not rejection. It is proof of investment. God disciplines what he intends to use. When you accept refinement without bitterness, you become trustworthy with greater responsibility. A refined vessel carries power without corruption. Do not be deceived into thinking that humility means silence about what God has placed inside you. True humility is not denying what God has given. It is acknowledging that what you carry comes from him. When you diminish your calling out of fear of judgment, you are not being humble. You are being hesitant. God did not entrust you with purpose so that you would hide it. He entrusted it so that it would be released at the right time, in the right way, with the right heart. You will encounter moments when obedience costs you comfort. In those moments, remember that comfort never produced transformation. Every meaningful shift in history came from individuals who chose conviction over convenience. God uses those who are willing to be misunderstood before they are celebrated. If you need constant affirmation to move forward, you will stall when affirmation disappears. But if your confidence is anchored in God, you remain steady, whether praised or criticized. The strength you are developing now will one day become shelter for others. People will lean on your stability during their storms. They will draw hope from your consistency. They will find courage in your faithfulness. This is why your inner life matters. Power without character destroys. Authority without wisdom harms. God develops character before influence so that when influence arrives, it heals rather than wounds. Learn to listen more than you speak. God often communicates direction through quiet impressions rather than dramatic signals. Stillness trains sensitivity. Sensitivity sharpens obedience. When you cultivate the habit of listening, you recognize guidance in subtle moments. A thought that brings peace, a pause that prevents error, an urge to wait when impatience pushes you forward. These are not coincidences. They are guidance. You are not required to understand everything to trust God. Understanding is limited by perspective. Trust transcends perspective. Faith is not blind belief. It is informed surrender. It is knowing enough about God's nature to place your future in His hands. He has never failed to be faithful. History confirms it. Lives transformed by trust. Confirm it. Your own survival confirms it. There will be times when obedience isolates you. When others choose shortcuts, you choose integrity. When others compromise, you remain aligned. Isolation can feel heavy, but it sharpens clarity. In those seasons, God becomes your primary source of affirmation. When His approval satisfies you, external validation loses its grip. Freedom begins there. Do not rush seasons you are meant to learn from. Every stage carries instruction. Every delay carries wisdom. God is not slow. He is thorough. What He builds to last, He builds carefully. When you embrace process, impatience loses power over you. You stop resenting the journey and start extracting strength from it. You carry a responsibility to steward your belief. What you believe about God shapes how you respond to adversity. If you believe He is distant, you will rely on yourself. If you believe He is present, you will seek His guidance. If you believe He is faithful, you will remain steady in uncertainty. Guard your belief fiercely. It is the foundation of your endurance. There is a power released when gratitude becomes a lifestyle rather than a reaction. Gratitude aligns your heart with trust. It shifts focus from what is missing to what is sustained. God responds to gratitude because it reflects recognition of His hand at work. Even in hardship, gratitude keeps your spirit open and receptive to guidance. Your obedience today is creating pathways you may never personally walk on. Future generations will benefit from choices you make in private. This is the weight of purpose. God thinks generationally. He sees beyond lifetimes. When you choose faith now, you are planting seeds that will outlive you. That is not pressure. It is privilege. You do not need to fear the magnitude of what you are called to carry. God never assigns without equipping. The capacity you need will grow as you remain faithful. Strength will meet demand. Wisdom will meet responsibility. Provision will meet obedience. Trust the process of becoming. Trust the source that sustains you. As you continue forward, let your life remain anchored in reverence for God, not in performance for people. Let your decisions reflect conviction, not impulse. Let your faith remain active, not theoretical. The power within you is not dormant. It is developing, strengthening, aligning. And as it continues to grow, it will speak through your actions louder than words ever could, revealing what happens when a life fully trusts God and refuses to live beneath divine purpose. There is a depth of strength that only emerges when you stop trying to impress the world and start living to honor God. Performance drains you. Purpose sustains you. When your motivation shifts from being seen to being aligned, pressure loses its grip on your soul. You no longer rush to prove yourself. You move with quiet certainty, knowing that God is aware of every step you take and every intention behind it. That awareness becomes your anchor. You must come to terms with this truth. God's world is not intimidated by the scale of what He has placed inside you. What overwhelms you does not overwhelm Him. What stretches your faith does not stretch His capacity. He is not asking you to produce results beyond your reach. He is asking you to trust beyond your comfort. The weight you feel is not too heavy. It is shaping your posture. It is teaching you how to lean on Him rather than on your own understanding. Many people misunderstand stillness and mistake it for stagnation. But stillness before God is often the most active form of preparation. It is in stillness that motives are purified. It is in stillness that distractions are exposed. It is in stillness that clarity forms. When you learn to wait without anxiety, you demonstrate trust at a level that invites deeper responsibility. God entrusts more to those who can wait without doubting. Your life is speaking even when your mouth is silent. The way you respond under pressure preaches louder than your words. The way you remain steady in uncertainty testifies to where your trust truly rests. The world listens closely to how you live, especially when circumstances are unfavorable. Consistency under strain reveals the authenticity of your faith. There is a difference between being busy and being effective. Activity without alignment leads to exhaustion. Alignment without excess effort leads to impact. God does not call you to run endlessly. He calls you to move intentionally. When you learn to move with purpose rather than panic, your energy becomes focused and your actions become meaningful. You stop scattering strength and start investing it wisely. Do not allow disappointment to distort your view of God. Delay does not diminish his faithfulness. Silence does not cancel his presence. Often God is working in layers you cannot yet perceive. What appears slow on the surface may be precise beneath it. Trust deepens when answers are delayed, not because waiting is easy, but because it forces reliance beyond visible reassurance. You are developing spiritual endurance, not just temporary motivation. Endurance allows you to remain faithful long after excitement fades. It keeps you steady when progress feels invisible. God values endurance because it reflects commitment rooted in trust rather than emotion. When endurance matures, it produces stability that cannot be shaken by shifting circumstances. There will be moments when obedience requires you to release what feels familiar. Familiarity can become a barrier when it replaces trust. God sometimes asks you to let go, not because what you hold is bad, but because it limits your reach. Expansion requires space. When you release with faith, you make room for what God intends to establish next. You are not responsible for controlling outcomes. You are responsible for remaining faithful. Results belong to God. When you accept this, pressure lifts and peace enters. Faithfulness is sustainable. Control is exhausting. Choose faithfulness. It aligns you with a power greater than your effort and a wisdom deeper than your reasoning. Your inner discipline determines your outer impact. What you cultivate in private eventually shapes what you produce in public. Integrity is built when no one is watching. Faith is strengthened when doubts are confronted honestly. God honors the unseen work because it forms the foundation for visible influence. Do not underestimate the power of obedience in small matters. Great transformation often begins with simple faithfulness. When you honor God in details, you demonstrate readiness for greater responsibility. Consistency in small things trains your spirit to remain steady when the weight increases. You are learning to carry authority without arrogance and confidence without pride. This balance is rare, and it is formed through humility before God. When you know that your strength comes from him, you are not threatened by others' success. You celebrate without comparison. You advance without resentment. You remain secure because your identity is anchored, not borrowed. There will be times when clarity comes gradually rather than suddenly. Do not rush understanding. Let wisdom unfold. God reveals truth at the pace your character can sustain. Premature revelation can overwhelm. Timed revelation strengthens. Trust the timing. God knows when you are ready to carry what he wants to show you. You are being shaped into someone who can stand firm without becoming rigid, who can remain compassionate without becoming compromised, who can lead without losing humility. This kind of formation time, patience and surrender. It is not glamorous, but it is powerful. As your awareness deepens, you begin to recognize that the greatest power you carry is alignment with God's will. When your desires align with His direction, resistance loses authority. Peace becomes your confirmation. Courage becomes your response. Faith becomes your posture. You are not becoming powerful to dominate, but to serve with strength, to restore with wisdom, and to stand as evidence of what happens when a life is fully yielded to God. That power continues to grow, not in noise, but in depth, not in haste, but in precision, not in display, but in lasting impact. And as it continues to unfold, it quietly reshapes everything around you, leaving no doubt it actively at work through a life that has chosen trust over fear and purpose over comfort. Now is the moment to stop listening as a spectator and start responding as a steward of what God has placed within you. This is not a message to admire and forget. It is a summons to awaken. Examine your life with honesty and courage. Ask yourself where you have settled for safety instead of obedience, comfort instead of conviction, familiarity instead of faith. God is not asking you to condemn yourself. He is inviting you to realign. Renewal begins when truth is welcomed without resistance. Stand still within your spirit and recognize this sacred truth. You are not empty, forgotten, or powerless. You are carried, seen, and sustained by God. Every breath you take is evidence that purpose is still active. Every heartbeat is a reminder that your story is not finished. Let gratitude rise, not because everything is perfect, but because God has faithful, even when circumstances were uncertain. Gratitude softens the heart and sharpens awareness of His presence. Choose today to walk closer to God, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Let your faith move from words into decisions, from intention into action. Release what no longer aligns with truth. Lay down the burdens you were never meant to carry alone. Trust God not only with your future, but with your daily steps, your hidden thoughts, your private struggles, and your deepest hopes. Allow courage to replace hesitation. Let obedience silence doubt. Let trust become your posture. You do not need to know every detail to take the next faithful step. God meets those who move toward Him with sincerity and humility. When you align your life with His direction, strength rises from within. Clarity sharpens your vision and peace settles where fear once ruled. Carry this truth with you. You are called to live fully, faithfully, and boldly under the guidance of God. Let your life reflect devotion, integrity, and trust. Walk forward with a heart anchored in faith and a spirit open to His leading. What God has placed within you is alive, purposeful, and powerful. And as you choose alignment over fear and faith over comfort, your life becomes a living testimony of what unfolds when someone dares to trust God completely. Play.